I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside, it's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show. Today on the James Altucher Show.
Michael Dell from Dell Computers talks about what happened when he tried negotiating with Steve Jobs and what does the future hold, including the future of Bitcoin. During this later time when you were, dealing with all this Wall Street stuff, you've also were going through your own deciding what you wanted to do and who should be CEO of Dell and what kind of person you'd want as CEO. What do you think makes a good leader of a $100 billion company that's never run such a company before? Like, how can you tell?
First of all, when you look across the spectrum of leaders, I don't think there's kind of one answer to that question, right? There are many, many ways to successfully lead. I think you want some combination of empathy and curiosity and being able to see around corners and being resourceful and being able to engage and inspire teams. There are certainly ways to prepare, but then when somebody gets in that seat, how do they actually respond emotionally to all the pressures and stresses and everything else? It's a unique job given the scale of a business like ours.
How do you inspire employees?
Passion, what gets them excited, what gets them motivated. Why is what we're doing super important to the world? And how can they make a difference in that? How can they succeed? We're doing things that are unbelievably important for our customers. We have the tools that we need. It's in our control. We're having fun. It's interesting. It's exciting. It's an adventure, all of that.
And to what extent should an employee sometimes think like an entrepreneur? Like, when often they have a set of things they need to do given to them by their boss, who is given those things by his boss or her boss, and so on, all the way up to the CEO. To what extent should an employee be thinking, oh, I have a better way and I should try this, and kind of break out on their own? And is that a typical path to success, is kind of employees who are entrepreneurial?
Well, this is kind of a big problem, as organizations get big, they will have a kind of less risk appetite and try to suppress these kind of people you're talking about. And so I think it's really important for organizations to, allow space for that and to nurture that and actually reward it. And so you want to embrace risk and make sure there's a place for it. You obviously don't want it everywhere, but when you're trying to do new things and innovating, coming up with new solutions, you're going to need people to take plenty of risk and to have very entrepreneurial approaches.
I wonder if this, obviously the founders of all these big companies, they remain entrepreneurial all throughout. And, you've been very entrepreneurial throughout the whole career of Dell. And I remember the story in your book where you're negotiating with Steve Jobs about licensing his operating system for the Dell computer. And it was very aggressive terms that he was proposing. And do you think that is key for success, both in an entrepreneurial, creative sense, but also in a financial sense? Like, he was just the deal he was trying to negotiate with you to license the Mac operating system. If I was in his place, I would think, I like Michael. I want to do a deal with him. What deal's good for you? Let's just do a deal. But he was just very hardcore about trying to squeeze the maximum amount of dollars in that deal. And the deal sounded like it would end poorly for you.
Yeah, so that wasn't a deal that made any sense. And I think there's an element of shrewd negotiating and understanding economics at a fine molecular detail that's obviously important in running a business. At the same time, I think you do want to look for win-win situations, and how do you split the difference, and how do you create some any partnership that's going to work over any reasonable period of time has got to be somewhat mutually beneficial.
Right. And so it seems like he wasn't aware how you would benefit in the long run or not from this deal, or I don't know. Like, why do you think some negotiators are so shrewd they almost out shrewd themselves?
Yeah, I think he was still feeling around and trying to figure out what would happen if he licensed the Mac OS. I mean, I know he was very worried that our scale and supply chain, nobody would buy Macs anymore. They would just buy the machines from us with their operating system. And so, what he proposed didn't really make any economic sense.
Particularly the fact that he wasn't guaranteeing to support it in later years. So he could potentially pull your customer base from you without notice, essentially.
Right. So it was definitely a deal we weren't going to do.
So, now you've achieved the success. You built this great company. It's going to last forever. It's a forever company, hopefully. And you spend a lot of time on philanthropy. What do you think there's a lot of talk in society right now about income inequality, for better or for worse. What do you think is the role of people like yourself or Jeff Bezos or others in terms of philanthropy, and what practices do you put in place to kind of be helpful to society in other ways other than Dell? Not that Dell isn't enough, but
Yeah, well, that's kind of the point. Is we've sort of said, gee, how could we do something philanthropically that has a greater impact than the impact the company has had? We don't exactly know how to do that, but we're working to figure it out. I mean, we've been focused on children and urban poverty, and that's had us focusing on, education and, family economic stability. And, we've looked for things where we can alter the trajectory of groups of people so that their lives 5 years on are meaningfully different. They have new skills, they have new opportunities that they didn't have before, and so as opposed to kind of a perpetual, here's a subsidy or something like that. So our foundation is really focused on uh, mostly those kind of projects where we can meaningfully impact people's lives.
I was wondering during all the economic lockdowns, particularly in major cities like New York City, something like 80,000 small businesses ended up going out of business permanently in New York City. And of course, many businesses survived because of, the government stimulus and so on. Is there a role for the super wealthy to kind of help out? I'm not saying is it necessary. I'm just saying, is there a possibility, or is there a role for those who have the means to kind of help out in these unique, difficult situations like these lockdowns, knowing that the government's probably not going to do the best job in whatever it is they're supposed to do there. I don't know if I'm asking this right, but I was wondering, like, everybody was writing articles like, oh, I'm going to buy real estate in New York as a way to help New York City, but that doesn't quite help a city. What was the role of philanthropy during these lockdowns, do you think?
Yeah, so the way we approached it was, we first of all, one of the things we noticed was that the people that we were working with and helping, they did have some severe and significant challenges, and so they needed even more help during that period. So, we initially set up a special $100 million fund within our foundation related to COVID, and did a lot of the things you're talking about with small businesses and how do you help folks through that difficult period. I mean, I think we saw certain businesses and organizations were more digitally enabled, than others, and certain kinds of things just really hard to do if you can't do it in person. But yeah, I think anybody who has had success, great fortune, great opportunity, I view it as a responsibility to figure out how can you do something meaningful to help others, and it's a super important part of how I think about the next portion of my life, and certainly talk about that in the book as well. In terms of most vast majority of my wealth will be used for philanthropy.
And what do you think will happen now? Like, people going to go back to work? More than 50% of people have said they prefer working remotely. Many companies are permanently remote now. Like, how do you see even the economic landscape changing and the work landscape changing? And look, Dell, one way or the other, Dell is pivotal to this. People work at home, they're going to buy different computers than if or they're going to buy more computers because they have some computer in the cubicle and some more computers at home. And I don't know, what's going to happen next? It impacts your business as well, or you might have some foresight into what's happening.
I think what we've seen is so many people and organizations have figured out that work is not a place, it's something you do. And a lot of people were pretty skeptical about work from home, but a lot of that skepticism has been dropped, right? And certainly people in the organization say, hey, I like this flexibility. And what is really the objective function of being in an office? Well, there is an objective function for certain times and places and things that you're doing. And so what is that going to look like? I think it'll vary by organization. I mean, you'll see businesses that say, all right, for these functions, these groups, we're going to meet on these certain days in person. These other days, You can come to the office if you want. You can work somewhere else as long as you get your work done. It's all cool, right? And so, yeah, I think we got a glimpse of the future, and we're not going to go back to the way it was. And people have learned behaviors in everything that they're doing, whether it's healthcare, education, entertainment, work, etc. And now things come to you. You don't necessarily go to them.
Oh my gosh, I love these clothes. Mizzen and Main. That's Mizzen and Main. It really is the most comfortable work clothes. Travel clothes. I had to travel this whole week. I'm traveling for a week and a half, and I just took Mizzen and Main clothes with me. Close out 2023 in style with comfortable, breathable, packable, and machine washable pieces from Mizzen and Main. As you wrap up your year-end goals, enjoy a Mizzen and Main dress shirt that you can wear confidently. I like that they've very, very just nice, solid colors. I don't really like to get all fancy in patterns and everything, although they do have some pattern shirts, but very comfortable clothes, stretchable pants. It's just super comfortable, but they look professional, and you can wear them casually or professionally. I like some of their flannel shirts or untuck shirts. I love untuck. I never tuck in. So again, whether you're shopping for a special someone or giving yourself the gift you really want, I just buy myself gifts. Mizzen and Main is the perfect gift for any guy who works, travels, and or cares about looking and feeling great. As you could tell by my many photos across the internet, I care about looking fantastic. I'm practically a model. And let's be honest, every guy loves to look great. So again, shop now at mizzenandmain.com and save 20% when you spend $130 or more using promo code James. That's promo code James at Mizzen and Main, Mizzen and Main.com. You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team or I can pick my favorite players, and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include two or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game-like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy. The future of learning is definitely online. Like, it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when It's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast, on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin or on chess from Gary Kasparov? You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get two memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply. It's interesting. I don't know if he's an economist or urban planner, but the author Richard Florida has said that one role of cities is to be this kind of fountainhead of ideas and creativity for young people. It's where ideas and businesses and arts get started. But we saw so many people leave San Francisco, LA, New York City, and you're sitting in Austin, I'm in New York City. The beneficiaries have been the Austins. Austin's probably the biggest beneficiary in the United States, perhaps Austin and Miami and maybe Denver, of people leaving San Francisco, LA, and New York City. So there's this dispersal of talent that was huddled in those cities for a long time. Do you think that's like a permanent change in the landscape of America or the world?
Well, I certainly interacted with plenty of people that have moved to Austin, Texas recently, and the way they describe it is basically, okay, I get some services from the government, right? The government provides some kind of security or infrastructure, education, whatever, and a lot of them are just saying, well, what am I getting in return? How much am I paying for that, right? and if it costs a lot less in one place versus another, but I can still do everything that I want to do, and it's works just as well, or maybe in some cases better. I mean, I think cities still play an important role, and people want to be in the beehive of activity, and they want to be around other interesting people. I don't see it as like Silicon Valley is going to fail and Austin's going to succeed. I think they can actually both succeed. But yeah, I mean, with super broadband connectivity, 5G, people will be able to work more from anywhere, which is not a bad thing.
And where do you see Dell's role, the company's role in, let's say, the near future? Like what technological changes are you starting to have the foresight to think about that your company should be developing in the next phase of technology, whether it's like you say, broadband all the time, everywhere you go, or there's going to be a lot more AI employees or efficiencies generated by AI. What do you see as happening with technology in the near future and Dell's role in it?
Yeah, I think there are a number of super interesting things going on. The first is that everything in the physical world is becoming intelligent. In other words, you've got microprocessors and software and microcontrollers inside everything. It used to be just the computers were intelligent. Right now, everything's becoming a computer or computer controlled in some way. And the next step in that is everything's becoming connected. And so then you have 5G. And so then you get this world of not people talking to machines, but machines talking to machines. And that generates incredible amounts of data. And so you sort of get to reimagine everything in the world and while the last, 3 or 4 decades have been super interesting and exciting, I think it's all just a pre-game show to what's about to come. So you have this sort of multi-cloud world with edge computing, enormous amounts of data. The amount of data in the world is doubling probably every 7 months or so, except that time is shrinking, every day that goes by. The networks are getting software defined. And so, and of course, it's so much data, humans can't really do anything with it. It has to be machine learning and AI. So all of that creates enormous opportunities. And, I think the other big thing that you'll see is the technology sector, will become a much bigger part of the economy, and not because of the IT departments, but because of everything else inside the organization. And there's also this kind of generational shift where the business leaders and the business line executives, the CEOs, are now fully understanding that technology is the fulcrum of progress in pretty much every industry. So,
like, what's the most amazing thing in all your recent adventures, and you probably look at new technologies all the time, what's the most amazing thing you've seen that's either here or coming right down the road?
I think, when you look at what's going on in the intersection of the biological and computational sciences with gene editing and CRISPR, and that stuff is super interesting. I think, look, just right in front of our eyes in the last year or so, right? We had these mRNA vaccines. That's amazing technology that, appeared in all of our lives, or, well, maybe not everybody, but hopefully everybody's lives, in a short period of time. And incredible. So I think the next 10 years, in that field are going to be amazing. And it's all driven by computational power, AI, machine learning, and being able to, decode all this stuff. And if you just take sort of a group of scientists and you say, okay, let's list out the 20 biggest unsolved mysteries of the world. Well, guess what? It's computational power that's going to solve and address many of those, in the period right in front of us.
Right. Like, if you think about, like, with genomics and gene editing, like you were just saying, it's obviously the cost to sequence the genome has gone from $1 billion to $50. So that's just like how computer growth grew exponentially. Started off, with very little computing power per computer, but then of course now it's amazing. And the same thing's going to happen with genomics, and I think most people don't quite see it yet. But right now, genomics is good for single gene mutations, things like that, where you could identify the exact gene that's causing a disease, for instance. But issues with protein folding or multiple genes that need to be edited, AI is going to have to play a role in that, for instance, just because humans can't. The complexity is too much.
Yeah, and AI, drug discovery, and all the work around proteins is highly conducive to the advances in computational power. And I think you know what we think of as cancer, which obviously is many different forms. I think the next 10 years we're going to see enormous progress on that, driven by all this power.
And so, what about in other areas? Like, what about money? Do you see anything in Bitcoin? Is that something interesting to you?
Yeah, blockchain is very interesting. I mean, I think there's obviously some hype there, and some of it is not going to work. But that's true of any new technology. We definitely see blockchain having some use. Our customers are experimenting. Even if you look at sort of the 100 largest companies in the world, almost all of them have blockchain related programs, or certainly pilot programs that could have a meaningful impact on on their business.
Like, what do you have going on?
It's in supply chain, chain of custody, logistics, um, and then building tools to help our customers in banking, in insurance, because they need a kind of enterprise grade blockchain that can create new capabilities. But I would say, we're definitely, in the enterprise customers, it's more in the experiment, test, pilot kind of stage.
Would you put any of Dell's cash reserves in a cryptocurrency, or you haven't really dealt with that?
Not ready to do that just yet. I've certainly made some personal investments in that, to understand it a little more, and that sort of thing. But there's no Bitcoin on the Dell balance sheet at the moment.
What about cybersecurity? This is obviously a huge issue for you, probably since day one of your business. Is it possible to defend ultimately against an aggressive enemy, who's using cybersecurity, like a North Korea or, God forbid, a China that decides to attack? Because all the time we hear, like, oh, Twitter out for 3 hours, and then it was some sort of weird attack. So this is clearly happening all the time, all around the world. Are we as smart as the bad guys? They only have to succeed once, and we have to defend everywhere. So that's part of the problem.
Well, the cat and mouse game has been going on, since the beginning of time. I think it's going to keep going on. And one of the challenges relates to what we talked about earlier, which is everything becoming connected. So the attack surface becomes 1,000 times larger. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, you're still dealing with, humans who can make mistakes and be tricked and fooled. And so, it's a constant battle. We are building better and better technology that makes it super tough for the bad guys, which are concentrated in 4 specific countries, to get into these systems. And increasingly, we think about intrinsic security is to say, how do we build security into the cloud service and the product that we're creating, because trying to bolt these things on, and there are thousands of security companies that all claim to solve the problem. Some of them have to be lying. There's no way that it's all true. And even if it was, nobody can, interpret 1,000 different security companies. So it's got to be more integrated and part of the solution. And the other thing is that we have to recognize, when we get on a commercial airplane, we go through various checks because we don't want somebody getting on that plane that wasn't checked, right? So we do give up some little bit of privacy to ensure we're secure.
Look, Michael, I know you're pressed for time and I want to be respectful. I really encourage people to read Play Nice But Win by Michael Dell. Again, I feel like it's a guidebook not only for entrepreneurship, and your story is iconic. Like, it's like the dream. I am jealous of that story. I wish that happened. I wish I put together computers in my dorm room in the 80s. And then it was also about, the book has lots of great Wall Street stories about what you're doing now with philanthropy, stories of your interactions with Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, others. Do you ever just wake up in the morning and call, like, I don't know, Jeff Bezos or Larry Page and say, "Hey, what's up"?
Not exactly. Yeah, we hang out with lots of other folks in the industry, and don't like to be serious all the time. So yeah, sure, why not?
All right, well, Michael, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and everybody should read this book. It's a great, easy to read book.
Thank you, James.
Entresto, sacubitril valsartan tablets, is the #1 heart failure brand prescribed by cardiologists and has helped over 1 million people with heart failure. It's a prescription medicine that treats adults with long-lasting chronic heart failure and works better when the heart cannot pump a normal amount of blood to the body.
Don't take Entresto if pregnant. It can cause harm or death to an unborn baby. Don't take Entresto with an ACE inhibitor or aliskiren, or if you've had angioedema with an ACE or ARB. Don't take with aliskiren or within 36 hours of taking an ACE inhibitor. The most serious side effects are angioedema, low blood pressure, kidney problems, or high blood potassium. Angioedema is swelling of your face, lips, tongue, and throat that may cause death. If it causes difficulty breathing, get emergency help.
Ask your doctor about Entresto. To learn more, visit support.entresto.com or call 833-446-6699. For pricing, visit Entresto.com/cost. If you can't afford your medication, Novartis may be able to help.